All right. Yay. Well, welcome to Wednesday Night Wisdom Share Sacred Practices. Glad you're all here. And whether you're here in person or online, we're so grateful that you're here. I'm so grateful to have Kim here tonight. We met, a few months ago at her beautiful yoga studio. What was it called?
Yakashala.
Yakashala. Beautiful, beautiful. It's like a retreat center. It's amazing. I was so impressed by the whole property and what you've done there to create. And some of the work you shared a little bit about. Probably going to share more about what you do up there. So it's a wonderful place to have your own. You can actually rent the place for a retreat too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's called Yakashala in Yucca Valley. You can find it on Facebook, Instagram, and yakashala.com. Oh, there's a camera. Okay. And it is a small private event center where, of course, we hold our own events, but others can use the space as well for yoga, retreats, teacher trainings, breath work, concert, kirtan, vipassana, weddings, and I'm ordained, by the way, so anything and everything. It's a small private event center, and it's just absolutely energetic and sacred and spectacular, and so please check it out. Yeah, we'd love to have you.
That'd be wonderful. And I would love for you to come do a kirtan with us.
Oh, incredible.
Yeah, and I love that kind of thing. We do that. We actually had someone who was doing that and then he actually left this earthly plane. So we haven't really been able to get it back up again ever since. So we're looking forward to maybe we can do something like that together. So there's a couple announcements for tonight. Let's see, we have, of course, we have lovely Kim Tang here this evening. And she's going to be sharing a higher level of service. And I love the quote that you wrote.
May I?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you know it?
Will you face me? Do I know it?
Yeah. Okay.
Would you face me, please?
Yes.
Okay. So put your phone down.
Okay.
And be just here with me. Okay. So it's an energetic, vibrationally encoded connection. When I see you, Mark, I see you as love. And when you see me, you can see me seeing you as love. And when you see me seeing you as love, you can see yourself as love. When you can see yourself as love, you can see me as love. Yeah, so there's a lot to it. We're going to talk on it a little bit more tonight. Oh, awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, so now you got a little taste of what we're experience this evening. Yeah.
Buckle your seatbelts.
Yeah, I'm excited. That just disappeared. That's weird. Okay, there it is. So I have a few more announcements for what's coming up this month. Let's see. I turned the phone over and it disappeared, but here it is. So next week we have Jeff Kingfisher, who's right there. Our notorious Jeff Kingfisher, or famous Jeff Kingfisher, who's a composer, a songwriter, beautiful singer and songwriter, and he's going to be sharing. And he also does a lot of sound healing. Just in a fascinating, phenomenal collection of sound healing tools and crystal bowls, and the way that he's put it together like a science. It's just fascinating. He understands all the megahertz and all the, right? And he understands the whole, does the whole chakra balancing. But next week is called Currents in Music, Currents Within. So currents in music and currents within. Ascending and descending scales and melodies, the rise to major and the fall to minor tonalities. These are currents easily recognizable to everyone, whether they're musicians or not, and they not only mirror, but affect our inner experiences of grounding to earth and descending to our higher selves. So I can't wait for this. I mean, Jeff does, it's such an experiential, whether you're here in person or live or online, it's fascinating. I always recommend being here live in person because you actually feel the sounds and what he's doing. It's just fascinating. So come next week and join us with that. And then the following week we have Peter Bedard's going to be here, and he's going to be sharing, he does a lot of work with healing. He has experienced his own personal healing, near-death experience, and healing work that he's done over the years is really phenomenal. He wrote a book called Convergence Healing. He's going to be speaking on a title called Understanding the Intricacies of Healing. Understanding the Intricacies of Healing. And he says, all healing requires love over anger, faith over doubt, and creativity over familiarity. We need to teach ourselves how to heal, what healing looks like, and how it feels. When we are suffering, whether it is from an addiction, trauma, pain, or anything else, we can get caught up with the ghosts of the past. Healing requires us to love those ghosts and jump out of the experience we have been living in and into a new experience. If you've been struggling with any form of suffering, mental, physical, or spiritual, then this workshop and Wisdom Share next week will help you begin to lay the groundwork for wellness that is enduring and deep. It's time to heal, so let's get started. And Peter's very dynamic and excited, very energetic. So please come the following week. And then the last Wednesday of the month, we have Yosemite. I'm not sure if I said Yosemite Annie.
It's Anne Hernandez.
Anne
Yes.
Hernandez. Oh,
Let's see. And I know her. She's
Yeah.
lovely. Definitely come to that.
yeah. Okay, you know her.
Yeah.
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 And her name says Yosemite Annie, but I don't know. And so hers is called Stepping Outside of Your Comfort Zone. Stepping outside of your comfort zone. And comfort zones are comfortable, but what happens when it is disrupted? In this session, you will learn to recognize your comfort zones so that you can decide whether they are hindering or promoting your personal growth. You will be guided through a process to tap into your higher awareness and then make some choices that can have a positive impact and have a positive effect on your life journey. Please bring a pen and a journal. We also have them here if you need it. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to her. It's going to be her first time sharing, and she's all the way from Yucca Valley also, and that's where you guys are from. Yeah. So, come join Annie the last Wednesday. So, if whether you're here in person or live, we really appreciate your loving donations that support this beautiful center and all that we do here. And so we have a love donation here at the center, a little jar or a basket over there. And if you're online, you can go. Jeff's going to put it up online. He's going to put the text to give information up there. So thank you so much for all your loving generosity and that helps support this beautiful center. So I'd like to start with a little centering practice to help us get all settled and centered, to be here now, in the presence, in the moment. So I invite you to take a few conscious breaths, wherever you are, as we give ourselves permission to stop now, to stop everything. Bring our full attention, our full awareness to this exact moment that we find ourselves sitting here, breathing this breath. We drop all of our strategies to try and get something or fix something or get something right. And we create some space to honor ourselves right where we are, just as we are. And allow the world to be just as it is. And as we quiet and still our mind, we align in the sanctuary of our own heart, the center of peace, a wellspring of wisdom and knowledge, an ancient wisdom, and an ancient peace that is always here. Just breathing into the sanctuary within, a place of refuge within our own heart, a center of peace. Feeling the connection with the wholeness within us, the divine spark within each of us. And as we quiet and still our mind and surrender into the moment, we open up now We open up our mind, our heart, our soul to receive, knowing that we're creating and co-creating a sacred space this evening, wherever we find ourselves, whether we're sitting here in this room or online, that we're creating a sacred circle, a sacred space, to receive exactly what our soul needs to hear and to know. As we quiet and still our mind, we align with this beloved presence, this divine presence within. We connect with what is already here, always here, in ancient peace, love, and divine knowing. Knowing that each one is here on purpose. I know this beloved presence, this divine source working in, as, and through each one of us, and in, as, and through Kim as she shares this evening. No, this is a divinely orchestrated and divinely guided evening. We allow Spirit now to have its way, to work in, as, and through each one of us, knowing that Spirit is having its way with all of us. We release this now, we let it go with a great sense of joy, knowing, and expectancy. We release this and claim it as so by saying, and so it is.
So it is.
So, I'm going to turn it over to Kim.
Thank you. Well, always I start with love and gratitude. It is the highest frequency. And so I want to thank you for inviting me, for opening this space to allow this message to come through. Thank those that attended in person. Thank you, Jeff, for your behind-the-scenes magic. And thank you for those who are logging in online live. And by the way, yes to that donation to support the Center for Spiritual Living, please. So not for me, but for the center to support more expansive energetic events like this. Yeah, so you'll let them know how, I presume. And what an extraordinary opening meditation, because first and foremost, it's just so relative to what I'm about to speak on tonight. Creating the connection with the heart. That'll be something really important that we talk about, and just really tuning in. When you invited me, you asked me what I wanted to speak on. And I thought about it. You know, we have nothing but choices, right? So I really go by what I feel. I have the thought, I feel it, that's what we'll talk on. And I thought, well, I'm going to do this talk that I either call it How We Serve or Serving on a Higher Level. And I actually sent you a link to a YouTube conversation that I've had with Alan Steinfeld on New Realities. And you shared that link in the newsletter. And so then we discussed the format. And the format is kind of like a 5 or 10 minute introduction, followed by a 5 or 10 minute sacred practice, and then we just open it up. And I've been thinking, like, oh Lordy, how am I going to squeeze the 2-hour conversation that this is into 5 or 10 minutes? And I was actually reviewing the interview thinking, I'll just try to pull out some bullet points. And then it occurred to me, nope, there's this thing I didn't say. There's this thing left unsaid, and that's what we're going to talk about. And so I want to invite the viewers to watch that interview in its entirety, to which we now add on to it. So if the conversation is what I'm going to call How We Serve, and I want you to realize, remember, recognize that although I primarily and initially serve through the teaching of yoga, it doesn't matter how you earn your money, what it is that you do for a living, in your vocation, in your capacity. So the conclusion that we come to in the talk is that you, aligning to the truth of who you are, living your most fully expressed expression of authenticity, coming from love and knowing the truth of who others are, is the way you serve. So I came to this point in my life when people say, what do you do? And I had the joy, I'm delighted to say, well, I just kind of be me in the form of anything that presents. Sometimes I serve in the form of being me and teaching yoga. Sometimes I serve in the form of being me and giving spiritual counsel. But the answer is always, I'm simply being me, and it's not always when I'm designated as on duty. And so Okay, fine, great, fantastic. But how can other people have practical, tangible, functional tools with which to navigate in service to others? So, in addition to the conversation we've already had that is available to everyone, I want to invite you to a new way of listening. And in this way, we can serve. How often is it that you're having a conversation with someone? You're speaking, they're standing before you, not talking, which presumably means they're listening, but maybe you can feel that they're just impatiently waiting for you to pause so that they can interrupt with what they already know they want to say. Maybe they're waiting so that the minute you pause, they can make an exit. Maybe they're listening to gather some ability to take something personally and take offense to something in a defensive way. Maybe they're trying to gain fuel for an argument on the level of intellect, to make you wrong, to make themselves right, to convince you of their purview. There are many ways of listening that are not in fact listening. So a skill that I will offer tonight in this conversation, and if I could just kind of piggyback on the talk that you posted, the YouTube talk, we kind of dabbled in the conversation of chakras, and you might notice that the throat chakra happens to be centered between the heart and the third eye. And the throat chakra, in fact, is as much about listening in the form of receiving as it is about offering in the form of contributing to the outpicturing of your consciousness. So contributing to your contributing your contribution, sharing, yeah, sure. And so the idea here is going to be that ultimately you learn to listen, not with your ears, but with your heart, to see someone in their entirety, to come out of story and listen, see them with your third eye, listen with your heart, and listen to them on every level of being with pure time presence, and let them be heard, seen, felt, expressed, held, and cherished. Let them be fully expressed. So a new way of listening that I will offer the viewers is this. If I care about you, which I do, then I care about how you feel. And if I care about how you feel, then I need to know how you feel. I can't presume that I do. That's when things go wrong. And the only way that you can let me know how you feel is if you tell me. And by the way, now we get back into that honesty is the deepest form of intimacy conversation, that you have to trust me in order to be able to tell me the truth of how you feel. So in a field of being able to connect to your truth, come from love, and feel safe to say, and in the way that that is one of the greater aspects of expression, we actually have to be able to do that for others as well, to hear them again from the heart, see them again from the mind's eye, the third eye, the eye of the Christ itself, and to accept them in their entirety. Maybe that means also coming out of story, right? Not being reactionary on the level of personality, but again, connecting to the truth of who you are and receiving them as the truth of who they are, which is divine in form. Yeah. So with that in mind, I think that what we'll do is this. I'm going to offer a meditation that I call Who Sits at Your Table? And this is a matter of clearing the auric field. And it's going to require like a little work on the part of the viewer, a little work on the part of the participant. So as I'm talking, I want you to think for a moment of anyone in your life that you feel holds you in judgment. Maybe it's someone who has spoken poorly about you, to you, or to someone else. And you kind of carry that with you. It makes you feel a little bad when you see them or when you come across someone that they're close with, or if there's anything like that in your life, or it could also be anyone with whom you have resistance, conflict, contrast. Just draw that person in for a moment. close your eyes, sit up, take a deep breath. Think of who that might be. And now I want you to visualize in your mind's eye that you are in the boardroom in your inner realm, in which you, and you are at the table. So your conscious mind, the subconscious, and the superconscious. And I'd like you to just invite this person in and invite them to have a seat right next to you. And I want you to look into the eyes of this person, eye to eye, heart to heart, in this shared safe space. And I want you to see them just for a moment with your mind's eye, the eye of the Christ itself. And I want you to see them holistically and in their entirety. And what I mean by that is, I want you to see who it is that they think that they are, with what they've chosen to learn through, everything they're up against in their lives, their self-perceptions that are their projections that create the manifestations of their life. So see them in a way that is less personal, more loving. And when you're able to have a bigger picture of this person, we'll go through the 4-step process. And I'd like you to try to develop the details in your mind. So I want you to start without resistance by saying to this person, please forgive me. And please give some fair consideration from their perspective of what offense they might be holding on to, what trigger they might be dealing with in the form of you, in the scheme of what they're up against in their lives. And ask for the forgiveness. And now, I'd like you to offer your own forgiveness. I forgive you. And please develop that with all of your perceived offenses. Maybe it's, I forgive you for what you said. I forgive you for what you've done. I forgive you for the way that I've felt and the offenses that I've perceived. What is it that you need to forgive them for? And now thank them. Thank them for the shared path, the part they play in your life, what you've learned about yourself in the context of. What can you thank them for? And please now offer them love. In your own words, in your own way. Realize and recognize that the love for you feel for yourself is the love that you're able to give them. And when you've completed the process of, please forgive me, and I forgive you, and thank you, and I love you, when you feel the energy is clear, is pure, is transmuted, then I'd like you to invite the person to leave the room. Know that you are free from what you hold against yourself in the form of the person. Know that they're free from any perceived offenses. And now I'd like you to spend a moment contemplating who is it that you would like to invite to sit at your table in the place of the person you've just released. Is that a great teacher? Is it a loved one? Someone who offers you support, guidance, or ease, joy? And then just think for a moment, do you have several people in your life with whom you could go through this process? Clearing your auric field, freeing yourself of any bad feelings that you project as a result of the influence of someone else. So release everyone from your table that no longer serves. Do it in forgiveness and love. And then decide who will fill your auric field. And so I invite you to continue this meditation on your own until you've gone through all the people in your life that are there to teach you about yourself. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And I think there's a lot of talking points there in the context of the conversation of how we serve, and in the context of the listening tips that we've just talked about, listening with more presence on every level of being. Yeah, seeing someone in their entirety. There's an agreement that I made with myself after having done a lot of this type of spiritual work, that since I've just mentioned clearing your auric field in the meditation that I call Who Sits at Your Table, there's an agreement that I've made with myself, with my belief system of what relationships are and what relationships are for. And that is that the relationships that I will attract are relationships in which I can be what I'm going to call personal, fully expressed on every level of being. And here's what I mean by that. If you and I are sharing conversation as we are, then I receive some message from you, and I filter it through my perception, and then I offer something back. And what I offer back in exchange is what I'm going to call the outpicturing of my consciousness. It's like I've hand-selected my perception to contribute. I take it neatly, lovingly, and properly in a box with a bow, and I hand it to you. So to be fully expressed on the level of the mind through the outpicturing of your consciousness, fully expressed on the level of the spirit, here we all are, right? Fully expressed on the level of your feelings, which are always telling you the truth in response to your thoughts and beliefs. And what I would say also is that in the case of an intimate relationship, the natural response of the level of connection on the level of the mind being fully expressed through the outpicturing of your consciousness, full expression on the level of the spirit and of the soul, then the natural response would be the desire for the physical expression of it. But to be able to be so authentically and freely, fully expressed, and to be loved for exactly what you contributed, I'm going to go ahead and call that a yes. That relationship is a yes. So again, it comes back to listening. Because how often is it, even and especially, in a relationship that the communication is a little shut down, the listening is not really present, nor is the sharing, right? And therefore, you're not fully expressed, and likely neither is your partner. So these are practical, tangible, functional tools, not just in relationships, but in, not just in intimate relationships, in relationships with all people in all settings. So I guess I'll leave it there. I know you wanted to really open it up to questions, answers. Yeah, let's do it.
Well, I mean, well, I don't know if you're like me, but I'm listening already in a whole new way. Have you felt that? Anybody? Right? You just from the very beginning, you brought that energy of listening fully from the heart, and I really appreciate that. It's funny because I didn't know what you were going to share about tonight. Really, I mean, I kind of had from a little bit what I saw and read. And in the beginning of the year, I had set an intention for myself. It's kind of an intention for my year. This new I always think of every year as a chapter of life, and this year I said it. One of the part of the intention was to be a better listener, and not that I'm not a good listener, because the work I do, I'm a spiritual counselor. I do a lot of work every day, listening. But how do I listen in my closest relationships? Am I really listening? Of course, my husband's always calling me on that stuff. He's always saying, "You're not listening to me," and I'm like, "Yes, I am. I'm just ignoring you." No.
I'm multitasking.
I'm multitasking. I'm doing something else. It shows up like that a lot. But in this process we just, it was so lovely and powerful, and the particular person that came up for me was somebody who we're estranged, is a family member who I'm estranged with, and right now, and not because I want to be, but because of the years of trying to make that work, and and then finally some things erupted, and I'm like, I just need to give this space. But in listening to this practice, I was able to see him here on the stage with us, on some level, and I was able to actually. But what came up for me and all that was, what did I learn? Because part of it was, what did I learn? Kind of, I don't know how you shared it, but what have I learned from you because of what we've been through? Mm-hmm. And it was one of the things that he would always call me on, is he said, "You're not listening." So he really always called me on me listening better. Mm-hmm. And even though I thought I was listening, but it was never. And then because of the dynamics of me feeling defensive whenever I talked to him, mm-hmm. I wasn't sharing authentically. Like I would always be holding back, because I thought I knew what he was going to think if I said something or didn't say something, and so our conversations were lame. Mm-hmm. Like they just never really got anywhere. And so this whole process was really powerful, because I got to see, my part in it, even though I was trying to be a loving, kind, giving person in this relationship. There was definitely some work I could do. So it was very powerful.
You give such good examples for talking points.
Oh, good.
So in just kind of the dynamics of communication that you're talking about, a few things that we know is that defensiveness is a function of the ego, and ego not meaning arrogance. It's not what we're talking about. We're talking about identification of self as separate, the story of who it is that you think that you are, right? The separateness self, the small self. The recollection
and
that
who I think they are, if I'm having,
and who you think they are, which is a projection, which we're going to get to.
Yeah.
So yes, spirit cannot be persecuted. So when you really align to the truth of who you are, you can be that space holder and receive that person in their entirety, so that you can actually just really embrace their perception. You need to know what they're thinking. You care to know what they're thinking. And so to actually receive it rather than react to it. The other thing you said was almost like anticipation. I know that if I say this, they'll say that. You're kind of getting like way ahead of yourself, kind of a future thought response. So
defensive listening, like you said. Yeah.
Defensive listening. Yeah. But what it speaks of is not the pure time presence, right? So if we are right here, right now, then I won't presume, if I say this, you say that, then I say this and you say that, done it 1,000 times, right? So, kind of repeating the pattern. So it takes two people to make the pattern, but one person to break it, right? And you can break it with this level of listening, the pure time presence, being available on every level of your being, and more hearing from the heart, more seeing with the third eye, the Christ itself, and really just caring about how they feel. Sometimes when I'm in a challenge in a relationship, because I don't have any, I always look to myself. To me, every single thing that there is my relationship with myself in the context of that relationship, that encounter, that experience. And so always I look to myself, and I check around in there. And if I feel like, yeah, that's mine, I own that, then I always feel comfortable with the words to say, hey, can we do a redo? Let's talk again. Let's promise to revisit this because you're important to me. This relationship is important to me. And just to kind of, revisit it from a clean slate perspective, get a little more present and know that you don't want to just fall into the same old pattern and habit of, if I say this, he'll say that, forget it, right? Because we can do better than that, and especially if it's important to you. Yeah. So, and then of course, we could expand that conversation into all the things, primarily forgiveness. And so I'm certain that you are teaching the 3 layers of forgiveness, which are number 1, forgiving someone from whom you've perceived an offense. That is hard enough for most people. But the second level of forgiveness is forgiving yourself, in most cases forever believing that you were unworthy, that you were unlovable, that those things were true. But in the very highest spiritual picture, understanding that there's never anything to be forgiven because there's vibrational precision in the universe. We're vibrational beings in a vibrational world, and everything is exactly according to the indication of what's active within us. It's something we've chosen to learn through and in the vibratory field. So how we navigate is the most important aspect of it. I like to say, what matters is not what happens, but how you respond to what happens. It will be what you make it, and you do get to choose. And so in that pure time present moment, not that kind of default knee-jerk, oh, forget it, if I say this, he'll say that, well, but getting more present, getting more aligned to love, to the truth of who you are, and coming from that place. This type of listening in the communication, I mean, it's literally just the answer to world peace, right? If we went through the world with every citizen, every neighbor, every nation, and did the I love you, and please forgive me, I forgive you, and thank you, and I love you, then I think the world would be a better place.
Yeah, that'd be true. Yeah, yeah, and it's a practice, right?
That's a practice.
To listen from this way, especially if we're having a challenge with a particular relationship, or right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does anybody else want to have a
Are
question?
you taking questions in a chat box?
Yes, I am.
Oh,
Okay, fantastic. So,
People can ask them, and I'll relay them to you.
yeah. If anyone wants
okay,
to.
yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
So type it in the chat box. I have no idea who's there. I hope that some of my friends are online. I sent out the link. And any comments, any aha moments, any real life, practical, tangible, functional opportunities to practice. So actually, something I forgot to mention is at the Yakashala, we have a Monday night spiritual study group that I call Of Source. And there's a mission statement there, and I feel like you and I share the same mission statement, and that is that first we receive the wisdom, whether it's through the spoken word or reading or however it comes, vibrational encoding, but then we set to practice in the real life examples that are practical, tangible, functional, knowing that that practice leads toward integration, and then complete integration is the embodiment, right? So you can become this frequency that others attune themselves to. Just in that way alone, you can be a space holder without needing one-on-one engagement with someone. Right. Yeah. So let me see, we do that. I think there were...
Anybody here want to ask a question or share? Hold on, hold on a second, let me get.
I don't know if I can formulate this right,
Yes, please.
but I'm going to try. I'll just try. So I'm in the counseling field too, like Mark. And the best, I won't say work, but the best experiences I have are very intuitive. Mm-hmm. I am not cognitively engaged. Mm-hmm. How would I integrate that more when I'm dealing with the forgiveness, like we did? Like I pulled somebody up from the not too recent past that was rather mean. Mm-hmm. And so I did that. But how do I get past the cognitive part where I go back into my intuition and just, I intuitively know what to say or what to convey? It's very cool when that happens.
It's cool. I honor you, and I acknowledge that. Same, me too.
Okay.
I want to tell you that what I talked about largely, did you watch the talk that I sent you called How We Serve? Part of it, perfect. So one of the biggest parts of the conversation was on what I call creating a field of trust with no judgment. And what I want to tell you is that everyone that you work with is on some level desperate for relief and release of primarily those things that they've been holding against themselves, right? And again, honesty is the deepest form of intimacy. And so if someone is desperate for relief and release, they can only do it in a field of trust when they feel that they're not being judged. That is something that you can actually step into as a space holder. You're already intuitively allowing just what wants to come. It was something else that I was going to say before is when you see somebody, you can see them very holistically. And so, for example, in my realm, very frequently, either when someone is asking a question, I'm sitting in pure time presence on every level of being, receiving them in their entirety, and I'm realizing, as I think you do, that the question that they're asked, the words that they're selecting, are not even actually the question that they're asking. And you can sense that there's something else they need to hear. And I feel like that's what you're doing, and you're calling it intuition, and yes to that. It comes from you being so attuned to your own senses, but again, using the heart to hear, the third eye to see, when you receive them in their entirety. And so I feel like you are doing that. Again, it's about not being out of story, or not being in story, being out of story when you're space holding for them. So the one that is feeling hurt by what they've done is the ego, it's the small self, right? Okay. So just for you, maybe going through the exercise that we did, working on forgiveness of them, of yourself, realizing and recognizing there's nothing to forgive anyway. It's something you've all chosen to learn through. It's according to vibratory precision. And so just know that when you step in as space holder, it's a field of trust with no judgment, and that's far more about you than it is about them. But through creating that field, you can actually create a space to facilitate their transformation. It sounds like you are, yes to receiving more and more intuition, and yes to trusting it. Yes to trusting your intuition.
It's very strange. It happens.
I believe you.
It's like,
yeah.
It just starts happening. And it's so cool because then I'm like, oh, I got it. And then I could ask them one question and they're like, how did you know that?
Yeah.
And I don't know how I get there, honestly. I don't know how.
I mean, there's trusting, but remember that, yoga means union. And it means one. This is a teaching, right, of Dr. Ernest Holmes, Science of Mind. And that is that there is one mind. That is the mind of God. That mind is perfect. And so likely you're actually connecting to that person through the one mind. Ooh, and so in a way you are them. You know that you are them, they are you, and you can see yourself in them. And if you're in the absence of judgment, they can see themselves in you. This is what I call creating the field of trust. When I first started travel, I used to own a studio here in the desert. It's the biggest yoga studio in the desert. I sold it. I started traveling the world and giving seminars everywhere. And what I found is that just intuitively, I was telling people stories about myself because they didn't know me. But if you were to look at my pictures on social media, you would think that I'm something unavailable to you, some elite something or another. That is not the case. And so I would really want them to know me. And what I would really want them to know is that I am you, no matter who you are. And so I would tell some personal, honest, vulnerable stories about myself so that everyone in the room, no matter the age or the level, could see themselves in me, and vice versa. So that's part of creating the field of trust. And in the absence of judgment, you're able to more readily and easily facilitate the transformation. And that is another way that we serve. For sure.
One other thing you mentioned, I believe I know everything. I believe everything that was ever created already has been created. In the field, the infinite, invisible, everything already is. The songs are there. There's only so many notes in an octave. It's the space between. So when I'm ready, my sphere of interest or beingness is ready, you show up, the book shows up, whatever I need, when I'm ready, when I'm able to get it, it's there.
God, I'm dying to, I'm dying to talk to you. Listen, let me do this, because I
Okay.
know that you know this, but you've given me this opportunity to expand on some of the words that you contributed.
Awesome.
So, first of all, what you're talking about is what we could call the Akasha, right? Kind of like the universal vibratory library of everything that has ever transpired, everything that ever will, everything that is now. And basically, we can be channels when we remove the ego and allow this information to come through us. That's simply called channeling. It's very clearly a thing. What I'm really delighted by is when you said, now play with me now, when you said, I believe that I know everything. First of all, yes to that, but let's play. Let's say that the small self, egoic identification of self as separate, which is the small self, the personality self, the self in story with thought identification, what you've chosen to learn through, everything you're up against, your limiting beliefs, your agreements made in fear. We're going to call that the small letter I, like a little line with a little dot. And then the truth of who you are as divine in form, in the absence of story, and ego in the absence of judgment and separateness. We'll call that the big I. Now, let's go like this. Small I believe that small I know everything. False.
Okay.
Small I believe that big I knows everything.
Yes.
Getting there. Big I believes that small I knows everything. Meh, has access with a little work.
Okay.
Big I believes that big I knows everything. Bingo, that's what we're talking about. Field of trust with no judgment, being in pure time, presence on every level of being, to be a space holder, to facilitate transformation. And it's, you are not the doer. Let's be clear. You are
thank you for
not the
saying
doer.
that.
So that little I, when it's the little I that's talking, it's one off, because you, as egoic identification of self as separate, are not the doer. It's, you're allowing something to come through you, and it is there to come through.
Okay. I love that.
Yeah, I love what
that's
you
a little-
contributed.
that's like one of those little tweaks that mean us so much.
Small tweaks make all the difference.
Oh, huge, right. Ramifications, yes. Oh, awesome.
Really cool. Thank you.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, keep it coming. Anyone else? Yeah.
Here I am. Yes, there I am. Yeah, a couple online. One from Andrew. Just wanted to thank you. Said thank you for the wonderful table meditation exercise.
Thank you.
I was able to have unfinished forgiveness
Ah.
to myself, and to my recently passed sister.
No.
So that's a lovely thing.
Mm-hmm.
And here he continues. I forgave myself for judging her, and therefore keeping her in her story. She knows I truly cherish her, and we had reciprocal forgiveness. Thank you again for the forgiveness exercise.
Thank you. Ooh, please tell me again the name of the...
Andrew.
Andrew. I have a belief that your sister can still hear you, probably even better now more than ever. And so keep that work coming. And realize that you and your sister came into an agreement to learn through each other. Try to identify what that lesson is and address it on the level of forgiveness, on the level of reperception of self as perfect, lovable, worthy, all of the things. And so when you can really just thank her for the lessons that you've shared, then you're kind of liberated from it. You'll end up just, high-fiving each other out of form when you get it just right, and there will be kind of no unfinished business to carry forward. So you can still do it now. It's never too late. It's all the inside job. It's all your relationship with yourself in the context of those that we've chosen to learn through in our lives. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Please.
There's one more line too after, okay.
This one's, it's tied in. If I looked at myself third dimensionally, just human, which I don't know if I like being human, but I have made a lot of very bizarre I will call mistakes the last few years, choices that seem not to serve me. I think in the long run, they do serve you. So I'm looking too short of a time period. But I love this forgiveness, but there's a part of me that says, yeah, but. And that I want to know, like, do you have some thoughts on
Definitely.
how to get past the yeah, but?
Yeah, I
and
have a lot of thoughts on it. So what teachings do you share? Do you share, Course in Miracles and all of these, or am I free to speak on those? Okay, so let's say for a moment that, you know what? I want to invite the readers, the viewers, to tune into a TED Talk that for me is kind of a starting point for a very important conversation, wherein we can combine kind of resources of all the wisdom teachings, the Bhagavad Gita and the Course in Miracles and all of them. There's a TED Talk called My Stroke of Insight, and it's by Jill Bolte Taylor. Okay, so now we're going to describe the left hemisphere of the brain as your connection to your humanity, and the right hemisphere of the brain as your connection to your divinity. And if we were to make an analogy to A Course in Miracles, we would say that humanity is what I keep talking about, egoic identification of self as separate, who you think you are, as separate in form. So everything contained in this body is called Kim, and everything contained over there is called Mark, and then there's nothing between us. That's your humanity. Therein lies separateness and, by definition, judgment, but fear. Your connection to your divinity is love. It's the truth of who you are, and it's a most expansive form. And I'll tell you, there's like a lot more to it than that, and if we have time, we'll go into it. But the reason that I gave you this example is because if we now have this context that there are only two choices. There are choices made in love, and there are choices made in fear. And, it is said, and we believe, there are no mistakes, right? So every single manifestation is just the indication of what's active within you and what you've chosen to learn through. But some of those choices were made in fear. And that's what you're calling a mistake. It's a choice made from me not loving myself, me being afraid. We should talk about that. So, and I just take notes so I can stay on track. Okay, so the thing is that in your life, these are lessons that you're navigating. And the way that these lessons can be fully realized and or be gentler is if you just, again, align to yourself as love. So I like to tell that I received some advice once. It was the best advice I've ever received ever. And that was make every single decision in your life, no matter how small, no matter how big, such as what you eat for breakfast or who you choose to love and spend your life with. Make every one of those decisions as if you loved yourself deeply and completely. And if you do that, then not only are you kind of healing your life in the form of what you've chosen to learn through, what you're up against, limiting beliefs, agreements made in fear, kind of making those choices from a place of fear rather than love, you'll transcend the lessons. So there was something else I wanted to say, is that you realize that if the only choices are fear and love, and fear, in fact, is a cry for love, then the only choices are love and a cry for love, for which the only appropriate response is love, right?
That's the miracle.
Yeah, that's the miracle.
The Course in Miracles.
And it takes the pure time present moment in a field of trust with no judgment, right? To be able to even recognize it, much less align yourself to that place to facilitate it. So yes to all those things. When we were talking about listening, remember the listening is also tied into the speaking, the contributions through the throat. And there are many different types of what I'm going to call lies. I'm calling it lies just for context and to catch your attention, because sometimes a lie is a deliberate misstating of the truth. That's something we all know. Sometimes a lie is something you don't say. It's something that you feel, but you don't give voice to. Therein lies one of the biggest aspects of the work of the throat chakra, is to be able to literally care as much about how you feel as you care about the person with whom you're sharing, because again, honesty is the deepest form of intimacy. So when you have the ability to connect to your truth, that alone is a task. And then come from love, which the reason that's relevant is because think of how uncomfortable people get with confrontation. Sometimes people feel so uncomfortable having to speak a truth that they need to build up some kind of energy of almost like lashing out, blurting it out, right? Because they're uncomfortable with honesty. So if you have the ability to really connect to your own truth, your most authentic truth, and absolutely come from love, self-love, love for yourself and love for the person with whom you're sharing the truth, and feel safe to speak that truth, then you're really liberated. Again, that throat, wide open throat chakra is right between the heart and the head. Now, why don't people tell the truth? They're afraid. What are they afraid of? They're afraid they're going to lose something. Fear of loss. What are they afraid they're going to lose? Maybe it has something to do with something that they sense as stability or security. Maybe it's an aspect of themselves. They're afraid you'll see them differently. They're afraid you won't love them anymore. You won't like them anymore. They won't have your approval anymore. You'll think less of them. So there are so many people, so many reasons why people don't tell the truth, and it all has to do with primarily fear of loss. So when we're able to connect to our truth, come from love, feel safe to say, which means when we're able to care as much about how we feel as we care about the person with whom we're sharing, and we're able to navigate on this highway, then we're actually able to receive it. So then we're able to sit in pure time presence on every level of being and receive someone in their entirety. And I am going to tell you that the net result of this is that no matter, I'm telling you this from my knowing, no matter how difficult that conversation is, it's an extraordinary conversation. So the most difficult, challenging conversations can become the most intimate, expansive, liberating, transforming of conversations when you're communicating on these levels. So it's a different way of being. It's a higher way of being, and yeah, it's liberating. So, yeah.
I love that ability to listen and share in that flow of freedom that is, like I said, it's very challenging sometimes, especially in the most challenging relationships, or a challenging relationship that's having a challenge, or it could be a good relationship that's having a challenge. It's those conversations that are challenging really are the most, to me, I've noticed in my own personal life, help me to grow. They're forcing me to grow. They're forcing me to step outside of my comfort zone, to speak truth, to come from the balance between the third eye and the heart, and actually then speak that without worrying if they're going to like it or not, which is a big thing for me. Is like, oh, I can't share this, and that was the big thing that happened with this particular issue and this family member. That I wasn't speaking. I just gave up speaking my truth to this person because I thought that they were just going to attack me every time I said something. That was so with that defensiveness. Now that might have not been true.
Well,
but I thought at the time it was.
I'll just throw it out there. Is that person still around?
Yes.
Because
yes.
don't give up. It's never too late.
I'm not.
Don't give up on them. Is what I mean.
I'm giving it space right now.
Yeah, for sure.
I need to, because I feel like I've tried too hard to try and make that work.
I get it.
I think maybe that sometimes was causing some of the issues.
There's also the reminder that if you're, let's put it in air quotes and say it this way. If you're so spiritual, then you don't mind that others aren't, right? And so you can be authentically the highest version of yourself and free from the need to meet their requirements or gain their approval or something like that. Yeah, for sure.
We had someone online too.
Let's grab something online and then we'll come back and thank you. Thank you for the engagement.
I just wanted to know how intimacy would be. I'm afraid to be intimate with that person who is so mean or hurtful or abusive.
So I do have to ask you a question. By intimacy, do you mean, because I said honesty is the deepest form of intimacy, and I wasn't talking about like sexual expression in the form of intimacy. So do you mean in sexual expression, or do you mean in communication? Mhm. You're not trusting. Yeah, you don't feel the trust to be able to, yeah, yeah. So step one, first things first, is to come to a field of trust where you feel that you can share both. Oh, I'm so happy you said that. You're just killing it tonight. You know what? Here's the conclusion that I've come
Yeah,
to.
it's trust. What he said, the question was to trust you.
He said, do I need to trust me?
Me, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, here is what I've come to. Is, you know what I need to trust? The universe. And my ability to decipher it. So what I mean is navigating the emotional guidance system. I need to be able, and by the way, you're really intuitive. You're already attuned to the emotional guidance system. So if you trust the universe, knowing that everything is in perfect vibratory precision, and you are adept at navigating the emotional guidance system, you almost don't even require that you trust someone else. Yeah, because if you are just being spiritually accountable, you're free. Yeah.
Freedom.
And Jeff, did you say that there was something in the chat box?
Just a couple of things. Not really any more questions. Lots of lovely hearts coming your way as you've been speaking. Linda says, I appreciate so much being able to hear this message tonight.
Oh, nice.
Thank you. And is
Linda.
it possible to give us a link to the chat of this interview? I was looking for it. Where might they find that? The interview that you were talking about earlier.
Oh, you mean my talk?
Yes.
Oh, let me see. And by the way, we have like a wealth of offerings. I didn't quite address it properly. We'll do that later.
Yeah.
But first of all, there's a YouTube channel called New Realities. And if you search Kim Tang on New Realities, you can go YouTube, New Realities, Kim Tang, any combination.
Good.
There are 4 talks there. 2 of them are called Yoga and Consciousness, and one is How We Serve, and one is called Chakra Diagnostics. But I also have links to those talks on kimtangyoga.com. And perhaps I'll put a link to this talk on kimtangyoga.com, so we can just start to gather a concentrated amount of information. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's content.
Sounds good. And you can add that. in
I
the
will.
chat there.
I've got it
Yeah.
written down here.
Okay, great.
I'll put that on there so people can
thank
see it.
you.
And also, you did mention also a TED Talk called My Stroke of Insight. Who was that?
Yes, My Stroke of Insight. Jill, B-O-L-T-E, Bolte Taylor. And there are a
Fascinating.
lot of talking points there, but how about we come back and have a different conversation, because I know that we're on a schedule, so.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you all for coming tonight, whether you're online or here in person. What a sacred space we co-created tonight. And thank you so much for deepening the playing field around listening, and have a greater understanding to open up to that deeper connection with something greater than the little I.
There's probably an afterthought I have that's a really valuable contribution. And I want to say that when I'm talking to people, whether it's casual conversation or whether it's spiritual consult, I always preface it by saying, I don't actually require that you agree with me or that you believe as I do. I'm simply sharing myself with you in the form of what you're up against, right? And so for these things to not be a boundary between the two of you is another component to invite into that way of listening. I don't require that you agree. I'm just allowing you to see me and sharing myself with you in the form of the subject, right? And so then there's no kind of animosity and no debate, and by the way, those things on the level of the intellect happen in the separateness hemisphere anyway, right? So, yeah.
What a wonderful conversation tonight. Thank you all for sharing, and thank you again, Kim.
Thank you.
And I love what you said tonight. This is what can change the world.
Yeah.
This is the kind of listening that steps us into that. How can I serve? How can I be in this world from the heart that the world so desperately needs, right? And I think that's what we're doing here. You know, every Wednesday night, but also tonight, and at your a beautiful yoga shala.
Yucca Shala.
Yucca Shala.
Yep.
Yucca Valley, Yucca Shala.
Yeah, we have an events calendar as well, so you can go on to Yucca.
You've written a book too, haven't you?
I should.
There was something you written. Yeah.
I know they're all laughing. I have about 8 books that have vibrationally been written. Yeah.
Vibrationally written books.
So stay tuned. Yeah, it's all there. I just need to go through the
I'm
formality of the publish and
same
whatnot.
boat,
So exactly, yeah. But I want to say YUCCASHALA, yuccashala.com. And we have an events calendar because we have some events on the regular, so I invite you to go and check that out. We're available for once-a-month events and also for a lot of different types of private events. And so check it out. You can contact me on all things Kim Tang Yoga, so kimtangyoga@gmail.com, Kim Tang Yoga on Facebook, Kim Tang Yoga on Instagram, and kimtangyoga.com. Yeah, it's pretty easy stuff.
Lots of
And on
ways.
YouTube, so you can't miss me.
Yeah, check her out. Check out
Thank you.
all that. It's a wonderful creation that you've created. I'm sure co-created with.
Definitely my
Yeah.
partner in crime.
Yeah.
And so the gratitude, all the love and gratitude as well for Spencer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and
Good
Lisanne.
work. Good
Thank
works.
you.
Good works in the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Well, come join us next week with Jeff Kingfisher. I'm always thrilled, and I know he's going to take us on a journey and help us to understand what was the name of the title again? The title just escaped me. Currents in music, and then the current in life within us. Right? Currents within. All right.
Beautiful.
So make it a beautiful evening, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks for joining us.
Namaste, everybody.
Namaste.